This is Tell Me Something Good About Retail with Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor. The champion for a more human connection in retail for over 30 years as a retail doctor. Bob is the authority on brick-and-mortar retail across the world, who works with some of the biggest luxury brands to independent retailers of all sizes.
Welcome to the podcast. Today I'm speaking to Jon Nordmark, co-founder and CEO of digital innovation platform Iterate.ai. Welcome, Jon.
Hello, Bob. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you built one of the early e-commerce darlings, ebags.com, back in the, 1998, before some of our listeners were even born. And what learnings from back then apply today as we talk about generative AI?
Oh gosh. I'd say the very biggest takeaway is kind of big picture. It's that you got to really pay attention to what's changing in the environment. Today it's the generative AI, but back then it was just a brand new channel of distribution. I was working at Samsonite at the time, and I met with the CEO. Tried to get him to do an e-commerce website. This was in 1997. He didn't want to do it. He lost his job 2 weeks later, so I figured out why. But then a new CEO came in, and I tried to get him to do it. And he told me after 45 minutes that, Jon, I have email, and I guarantee you no one will ever buy a bag through an email. And that was what caused me to leave Samsonite and start ebags.com. But, he just wasn't paying attention to the new channels. He wouldn't let the company do it. And so you got to watch for the channels of distribution, changing business models, the efficiencies gained through digital. That's why I started eBags. And but then after it got going, what I learned about then was the value of experimentation. I learned
that's a big word. Wait. What does that mean to us?
The value of experimentation?
Other people, yes.
Yeah, well, eBags lived because we became an experimenter. There was and we were losing $1 million a month, and with no access to new capital back in the beginning of the dot-bomb. And we figured out we had to get profitable really, really fast and live on the money we had, or we would die. Everyone would lose their jobs. So an engineer came to me one night, and he said, Jon, I think I figured out how we could live. And I was like, well, I'm all ears. Like, tell me. And his name was Val Augustino. He went home. He told me that if we built an A/B split test platform, he thinks we could live. This was in 1990, beginning of the year 2000, basically. And I asked him what he meant by that. He said, because I'm a marketer, when you mail, you can do a piece of mail to someone with one headline and then another piece of mail with a different headline to someone else, A/B splitting in the old-fashioned advertising world. He said, what if we could do that online? And I asked him, well, what do you mean? Could we do that? He said, I think we could. And I said, how? He said, if you give me 3 weeks, I think I could build it. So I said, go home, build it. Don't come back till it's done. He did it. And then we became an experimentation machine. We basically ran probably 1,000 experiments, one after another. But this is 7 years before we started, 7 years before the term even showed up in Wikipedia. But it's because we built our own capability, and we tested everything, looks and feels, layouts, colors of buttons, everything. And what I learned in that was I'm only right half the time, because we would run little experiments on ourselves, like we'd make bets, like gentleman bets on which would win. And I learned nobody can predict the consumer behavior. Experiment's the best way to do it. So I became a huge fan of experimentation, not because of a theory, but because I watched what it did to Iterate. To eBags, excuse me. We moved our conversion rate from 0.7% on a daily basis, not on a month, but up to about over close to 7%.
Wow.
Just over a period of experiments. And Nielsen recognized us in 2007 as one of the top 15 converting websites in the world. And it was because of that.
Well, so then continuing the story, How did a guy from Colorado meet a guy from Ukraine and end up finding another software business to start?
Oh, well, eBags, yeah, it's true. It's a retailer, but it was also a software company. And that's where I kind of gained a love of digital and working with people that build digital. But after eBags, I was invited to be on the board of directors of a Ukrainian Techstars. It was an accelerator based in Kiev. And I did that for 2 years. And when I went over there, I probably went over there quarterly for a couple days at a time. But I met a guy named Brian Satyanathan, and he happened to come out of Apple. He worked in Secret Products, which is he owns patents on the very first iPhone. Like, he was part of that little tiny team that built the first iPhone. But I met him there because he was also a board member. We were brought by the same person who's a Russian, actually, but loves Ukraine, and we looked at like 400 different companies together. Every 6 months, that's what they put through there, and then we would pick 10 to work on, every 6 months. But by talking with this guy Brian just about where the world was going, we learned from watching all these entrepreneurs from Eastern Europe that had no money. Like, a lot of them still lived at home with their mom and dad. And they were from all over Russia, Kazakhstan, Moldova, Ukraine, wherever. We learned that they were building companies off Amazon's cloud in the year 2011. So they didn't need to buy servers up front like I had to do, with eBags in the beginning. So they were launching off Amazon, AWS, and then they were using code libraries, open source code. So that's free. And building on top of that, we could deploy SaaS models, and they were founders who were actually technical. And that's when we realized, oh my gosh, the world is flat. The world, an entrepreneur no longer needs capital to start a business. You just need the right mindset and brains. So we said the barrier to entry to starting a company is now brains, not capital. And because of that, that was kind of the thesis that we used, or the philosophy we used to start Iterate. And what I do today.
And what's its big mission to do then?
What's Iterate do? What it's sort of morphed into, we put a .ai at the end of our name in 2017. And the reason we did that was, we could see that AI was going to be big. We started in 2013, but we changed it to .ai in 2017. And what we are now is a software platform that helps big enterprise build AI solutions. It's a low-code AI platform. That's what we call it. It's way more than drag and drop. It's super advanced. And 90% of our revenues come from that platform. We do a lot through retailers like Ulta Beauty, Pampered Chef, Circle K. The other 10% comes from advisory services around AI, IoT, just helping big companies, strategy teams, digital teams, map out and think through their journey in AI and IoT. Well, that's how we started, really. It was that services side, but we built the platform after getting going.
So I firmly believe that generative AI is going to start Skynet any day now, and we're all going to be at war, but hopefully I'll be dead by then. I mean, it's a little disconcerting when the people that created it are saying, holy crap, it's Pandora's box. That's not, and I must get, I don't know, 20 or 30 emails a day about somebody's doing, AI. And that's almost like saying, I have a store. It's so broad that, you can use ChatGPT to do all kinds of things. But when it really gets down to it, what kind of pain points is generative AI able to help retailers with? And, what kind of gaps need to be filled by that?
Yeah, and I'm with you, by the way, on the unknowns around AI.
See, that the guys that see it are the ones who are just as scared as I am. So
yeah, I mean, we're trying to use it to make the world a better place, which is kind of what your question's asking, and obviously that's what we want to do. So I think a big area is around staffing. Like a lot of retailers today have trouble hiring people. And that could be for the call center. If you're a quick serve restaurant, it could be for, you're just missing one person. And if a generative AI application could actually be the voice and the brains behind the box that you talk into when you're going through the drive-through, that's a pretty big deal, and we can do that. And then another thing you can do with generative AI is use the license plate to recognize who's coming into a drive-through, like at a quick serve restaurant, or at a gas station, like a convenience store, and then use that to actually activate the pump. It can turn on the app in a person's phone, turn that into the payment solution, so you don't even need to bring out your credit card. Kind of turn your phone into a Starbucks card, but in a drive-through restaurant or or at a convenience store. So anyway, it helps. It could help with staffing. It can also just, I look at it as a way to kind of augment a human being's brain. So if you're thinking about a person who might be working in a retail facility, they got a lot to do, and we've actually worked with a retailer to build a to-do list, basically a dynamic to-do list, which the cameras are watching. We use their existing cameras to watch everything going on in the store, and it can then create to-do lists on the fly. And let's say, and a good example is 10 people walked in the bathroom. Can you go back there and just see if it's clean? And that can all be done through generative AI applications. You can do it with inventory, a number of things. Training too, which you're a big trainer. But there are ways, right? Generative AI can help with that. If you have remote locations or you want to create an application that trains a person on specific needs of a certain retailer, you can do that through a private large language model. So those are a few applications.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be the big ones that, the Walmarts and the Targets of the world that have the money to burn and try experiments and all of these in Malta and figure out, what works. I know it was interesting with Walmart when I was at NRF many years ago, and I think it was Amazon was touting their Just Walk Out service, and also their ability for their robots to be able to do inventory. And eventually Walmart said, all we have to do is take a picture of what a stock shelf looks like, and then have the cameras all go off every 30 minutes, take a picture, match it up, build the pick list, and then go through it at much less money because the cameras are all Wi-Fi enabled. But it still comes down to having as much data as you can in the system, right? Isn't that kind of the whole point that, like I use HubSpot, and HubSpot has got so much information about people that have come in, and you think, like, couldn't you just go through and look at all this and show me people? But it still comes down to training an algorithm, right? That's kind of it. And so when you're dealing with a retailer, how do you go about even deciding? I mean, we really need a thing that reads people's license plates and matches it to the loyalty card to turn on the pumps. Like, that's pretty advanced. So how do you? But yet, as a customer, that's really a pain point probably that you have solved, because if I've got 2 or 3 kids or my dogs and it's raining and any number of things, you can make it less friction. That's ultimately where we're going for everybody, right? So what would be some of those ways how it might help? How do you figure that out?
How do we, I think it just comes down to, one way is just keeping an open mind and keeping your eyes out, watching what other people are doing, because I tend to believe innovation isn't really about some genius going and sitting in a corner coming up with an idea all by herself or himself. It's really usually it's about connecting dots, and it's about keeping an open mind. And so what I've watched companies do successfully is one thing we do is what we call tours of the possible. And it's you come up with ideas about how you could remove friction, let's say from a shopping experience or whatever, and then you just come up with theses or hypotheses on how to do that. And then you go look for all the startups in the world. There are millions of them. and you look at ways that they're trying to solve the problem. And kind of to your example with Walmart on taking a picture of the inventory and using the cameras in to look at the picture and use that data to determine if you're out of stock or in stock. A lot of times innovations, like good ones, are just nuances of some other idea. They're, again, just connecting other dots, bringing one other dot into the scenario. And so what we'll a lot of times do is just look at ideas that other people are bringing forward. Sometimes they're ones you want to move forward with yourself, but then sometimes they kind of spark another idea. And so that's kind of the tour of the possible way. And another way, we have this kind of like idea collection capability, where what we like to do is encourage companies to ask their employees, how do we improve your job? How do we make it easier? How do we make life more fun when you come to work? And ask them to contribute ideas. And there was one we did with one major retailer around IoT, and I think 140 some ideas came in, and 10 of them were, a number of them were kind of the same, little nuances on each one, but they ended up with 10 ideas that they wanted to pursue looking at. And again, those could come from just, the associate working in a store. It could come from a chief digital officer. But it's important also to not look at who's contributing the idea, so you don't bias the value of the idea itself. Because a lot of times, some brand new person may have a great idea. And
I didn't come up with it, so it's crap, because I'm paid with the EVP. So sorry.
There's a lot of that, isn't there?
And it's sad, because you could argue both sides of it, right? It's like, well, you should know that. One could certainly say that. That's what you're paid to do. However, the person who is most seeing the customer is person at the front, but we don't usually give them the voice because you're just a part-timer. What would you know? And they may not be as willing to say, hey, because they don't know what you're going to do. They might end up saying, we know our stuff. And who knows how many ideas are being lost at your company right now because you're not even asking. How's that? So,
when I started my career, Bob, I love that you just said that, like giving everyone a voice. When I started my career, I took a job at Sears. That was my very first job out of college. I was in their management training program. They hadn't hired a college student for 15 years, I think it was, and I was part of the first group they brought in. They had an unbelievable process for hiring.
Yeah, I want to stop just for a second, because most people, my dad worked for Sears, put himself through divinity school back in Chicago. And, a lot of people would either not know the name or would poo-poo it like a failed brand.
Yeah.
Sears should have been Amazon. For those of you who don't realize it, Sears was the bomb. They were an entrepreneurial company, started off with a railroad engineer who basically sold railroad watches to people up and down the line, and then grew it. So they are the standard for a lot of us until probably the early 80s, when they went to the softer side of Sears and pretty much forgot who their customer was, and a lot of other things happened. But just to go back for you, Jon, for some of us who may not have understood, that was a big honor to be working for that company. That would have been the top of the mark. Wouldn't you agree?
It was an amazing company. I mean, really, you could almost credit them with inventing the first internet website, which was a catalog, right? I mean, they were the inventor of the paper catalog, and it was that huge catalog that tried to be what the internet kind of became. The internet, like in Amazon, probably considered something like the Sears catalog what they want as something they wanted to create. But but kind of to your point, they lost their way. When they brought us in, I'll never forget this. I mean, it was kind of a defining moment in my career. I was really excited to get going with them. And in the very first meeting, on the very first day, they stood up there. There were like 30 of us that they hired in the whole country. And they said, we just want you all to be quiet. We don't want any ideas, no thoughts from any of you. You just need to learn our system, and that's what you're here to do. And right there, I swear, that's where I quit. And at least mentally, it took me 9 more months. I went through their training program, which was actually extremely good. I think it turned me into much of who I became as a professional. Like it led to without going through that, I don't know that Samsonite would have ever hired me, to sell to retailers. And
a
then
structure,
that
right?
would
It gave you a structure. You understood how it
great
all fit
structure.
together. That's what I think so many people miss is everybody kind of wings it. And you're like, well, yeah, you could wing it. You can write a story however you want it, but no one will read it unless you have a structure to it that we're used to. And so
That's right.
I think that's what it does. It doesn't change you as much as let you understand that, oh, to be heard, this is the way I have to work, right?
Right. And and that experience was defining for me. That one comment was defining, but then I had many great trainers, going through Sears. I still remember their names: Mr. French, Jerry Epstein, Roberta. But in the end, that attitude kind of sucked the wind out of me, and I had to leave. And and then I got lucky from there on, in my career. But that was defining to me, and I think it taught me how to behave later. It's maybe one reason I believe in listening to people so much. Anyone can have a good idea percolating.
I love that. Well, before we continue, we'll continue talking about listening to our both our customers and our associates as well. And we'll take a little break, but we love our loyal listeners. So I'd appreciate if you take just a moment on your favorite platform, just give us a 5-star review and tell your friends, because frankly, it's all about doing this for you to be able to help understand how to be a better retailer, no matter what size you are. And now we'll return after this word from SalesRx, online retail sales training, presented by you-know-who. Hey, it's Bob again. I'm not only your host, but also the founder of the SalesRx online retail sales training program. How many sales that should have been yours walked out your front doors today? With shoppers being more discerning about where and when they shop, you need to convert more lookers to buyers. And SalesRx is the perfect solution to make training memorable. It's bite-sized, it can fit easily into your schedules. Don't tell me you don't have time to train. If you can give them time to take a break, you have time for them to train. Now, the training builds from some of the quickest ways to engage shoppers to the most advanced. Everything is planned so you can implement your sales training program with a click of a button. And there's a reason we're on 4 continents training thousands, because SalesRx is scalable. Everybody learns the same new skills that will grow your sales. In fact, 83% of users report a double-digit increase in their sales within 6 months. Wouldn't you like that to be your story? Visit SalesRx to learn more and set up a call with me to see how we can help. That's SalesRx.com. Now back to the broadcast. All right, and we are back with Jon Nordmark, co-founder and CEO of Iterate.ai. Now, before we were starting the break, we were talking about listening to people and how you'd been shut down. So how do you bubble up people to be able to have a voice? Because on the one side, as I heard you tell that story about Sears, I was like, I've been that guy that would just say, shut up and learn the system, and then you can ask questions. I don't want to answer questions all day. However, I also understand that if you're going to be that guy, then it's my way or the highway, which certainly worked in the 70s and 80s. But I don't think it ever felt good for anyone, to your point. And nowadays, we certainly have younger people who expect to have a voice. That, on day one, they might ask you why or tell you, no, I don't want to do that. So, certainly over your career, what are some ways to help people find a voice without just becoming a free-for-all? Because I think it's both sides, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think, number one, like as a leader, so at eBags, I was a CEO, but I was a founder, and I think that's a different type of person. Like I was there when it was me, and then I was there when it was 5 people, and then I was there when it was 150 people. And one thing that I tried to do was go to coffee every week with at least 3 people. We would go to Starbucks and just sit and chat. And I always asked 2 questions. Tell me 3 things you like about your job or the company. 3 things that are going well that you really like, and 3 things that if you could wave that magic wand and change it, you'd do it. And when they give you the things that they don't like, you just have to be conscious that you can't scold them. You can't hold it against them. And I think that's really, really important, as a leader to do that. But one of the things that happened to me, one that stand out to me was when we went through the dot bomb, we had to lay off 25% of our people. This was in the year 2000. And it was the most gut-wrenching thing for me because up to this point, I thought I was this rich guy. Like, we'd raised money at $142 million valuation, and I owned a pretty big chunk of that. And, but it's all paper. That's one thing non-entrepreneurs and actually first-time entrepreneurs don't realize. Like, so many of the numbers you read, they're just kind of like fake numbers because they're just paper, until someone actually
hands you that,
buys a company or hands you the check, it's paper. You have to be really careful about what you do with the information that you don't want to hear as a person who, is really close to the company as a founder, let's say, or a CEO, but especially as a founder. And, but anyway, I remember one week I went out with 3 men and, in different parts of the company, and I didn't invite anyone from an intern to a software developer to the head of merchandising or whatever. It was all one-to-one personal connection. And 3 men told me that they loved working at eBags, but they're getting a lot of pressure at home because we just cut our benefits because we had to cut 25% of our people. And part of cutting, you have to cut anywhere. So we cut benefits. And 3 people told me they're going to have to leave the job because they're getting pressure at home and they need better benefits. And I remember after the 3rd one said that, I went back straight into our CFO's office and said, we got to add those back or we're going to start losing really important people. And so that's one way to collect information. Another way is to do it through technology, like we talked about a little bit ago, kind of an entrepreneurship program, a virtual idea box or virtual complaint box or whatever you want to call it. But I do think you just want to make it explicitly clear that you are open to ideas. And that can mean, just being proactive about going and listening to people.
Well, and in my case, it would be biting your tongue. You ask the question, you don't have the right to respond, really, and then taking action. Yeah. So having a notepad. I think Oprah Winfrey said it in a interview once that the most important thing people want is to be heard and to be seen, and that's really all it is, right? So you've asked my opinion, I've given it to you, then that's enough. It's not like, and I better see action in 30 days. That's not the same thing. It's like you're asking, you're taking pause to collect it. And then, when things do change, you can certainly write back and say, hey, that idea you had 3 years ago, we finally did it. But it's not a to-do list like, oh my God, the whole place is burning. So that's where being a founder and an executive is, being able to say, this is not as important as that is, because, when you see these undercover boss shows and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And I always think, how clueless are you? You went on TV to find out what your job was. Just get out there. And that's one of the things I think in retail, you get the store visit with some mucky muck who would come through and, and would never talk to the associates. They would be talking to the buyers and the senior people. Yeah. And that felt like crap to be on the floor because you felt like you're being judged or you're not part of the party. You're not with the cool kids. I don't think that would exist today. I think people all want to be noticed and valued. And we're running out of time, and I have so many questions for you. But I know one of the things that you talk about is managing inventory efficiently. So how can that be helped? Because everybody's coming out of supply chain with COVID, and we hear that everything is better, but it's still kind of broken. And the idea of everything having just-in-time inventory was supposed to be the answer, and then we found out, well, maybe that's not the answer. So.
Well, and a few of the cases that we've been involved with kind of related to AI again are using existing cameras. I think what's really interesting is if you can build an AI capability that can operate through your existing infrastructure. So your existing, let's say, security cameras, and it can keep an eye on, using an example of a convenience store again, the hot dogs on the little rollers, and count them periodically, and then let the associate know that we're down to 2. You better put a couple more on the rollers, or or, you know, when as it's counting things, also relaying that information back to the home office. That works. And we've also been able to, you know, do the same thing with cups, you know, at like a coffee counter, with beer containers, stuff like that. But then, you know, if you can also enable, well, be able to use or get an AI that uses edge inferences, you know, then you can keep all that information private. If you can connect it to the weather in an area, we've been able to produce some forecasts that are pretty interesting. You know, we can predict consumption based on weather for certain types of products. As long as you can get like a 10-day read on how far out the weather is going to change, you can, you know, stock up more in stores or stock down a little bit more in stores. So AI is useful in all of those functions.
And, you know, that's part of it as well, that the more data points, that's why I keep going back to all of you who are listening,
data.
The more data points you have in your system, the better. Just having an email and first name, yeah, you can personalize it. Not really. You're just saying an email with a field. That's not personal. But if you could actually, I mean, to me, the gold standard is if you knew me as the retail doc and you could actually say, hey, Bob, you know, as a retail consultant in upstate New York, you know, one of your challenges is this. And one thing we found is this. And if it was spot on to me, it would be amazing. But right now we're still kind of a spray and pray that something lands. So the more I think we can go through and do A/B testing and go, this works, and then teach that AI to do something, the better. So, you know, technology is continuing to change. I have one more question after this, but, you know, how fast is AI changing? And what do you think we can expect in the future besides Skynet? I'm just saying. I want to make sure I'm on the record for that because I called it. All right.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, generative AI has just exploded. So it was just AI up until November 2022. And I think that in November, a year ago approximately, it just, the world changed. And that's when GPT, I have this layer placed on top of it, a user interface called ChatGPT. And that let everyday people, you know, non-technologists come in and interact with AI for the very first time. And that changed everything. And, you know, in a period of months, we went from chat or GPT-3 to 3.5, then to GPT-4. And what they did is they trained the models on, it grew from, in the very beginning, you know, in 2018, when the whole idea of GPT or LLMs, generative AI, became known. It moved from training a couple billion models to, you know, GPT-4, which is, they think, you know, in the trillions of parameters. And so that's what made the large language models start thinking like human beings to some extent, or kind of having conversations like human beings.
Well, and we're all using it, so we're teaching it even more, right? That's the whole thing. We're all giving input into this.
And what we're going to see in the future is smaller language models, smaller ones that are made private inside companies. We're already building those for like 15 companies, but that's so that other people can't access their language models. It's their private language models. We're going to see costs continue to come down. So GPUs right now, like in 2022, I think it cost $10 million to process a million, what they call, or a billion inferences. That'll go down, they think, to about $650 by the time we hit 2030. So the ability to process data will be a lot cheaper, and it'll be a lot faster because the quality of chips keeps getting better. You know, so you're going to find these chips put into more and more consumer products. And I think product companies that sell services are going to become service companies that just happen to sell products. And what I mean by that is products are going to create journeys. They're going to create digital trails, and you'll be able to use those to tell people how to use them better, or when to replace them, or how they can interact with other products. And those are some of the things that are kind of coming, I think.
I love it. Well, you know, the title of our podcast is Tell Me Something Good About Retail. It's my last question I ask all our guests. So, Jon, tell me something good about retail.
Well, people, love to shop. There are a lot of great people working in the industry. It's a dynamic industry. It'll only get more dynamic. Retail is being redefined by the different channels of distribution. Those are evolving. And because of the nature of how tough it is, I think it attracts a lot of really interesting people to work in it.
I love that. That's great. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. And, the future is really there for us to just jump into. That's what I take away from you, is that you just got to try things. And until you actually jump in and do it, you're on the side, and you might end up like Samsonite and out pretty quickly, because the market is only getting better. That's the way I look at it. Yes, we can either be fearful of the future, or we can take stock in. There's a lot of brilliant people looking how to make this even better. So I appreciate you being one of them, Jon, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Bob, and I appreciate you asking me to do this.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Tell Me Something Good About Retail with Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doctor. As a listener, you can receive free information and guides when you visit retaildoc.com and sign up for our exclusive weekly newsletter. Thanks for being with us. Remember to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. To virtually bring Bob to all of your crew and associates, check out www.salesrx.com.